Hey, Bayek, it's me, Ian. And in today's video, I'm looking at this. This is The Frightened City from 1961. This is a film noir thriller, and it's a British one. And it's 97 minutes long, and Rotten Tomatoes give it 33%, which is very low. I don't understand why. I mean, this has got a great cast, great story, and it's very much a brilliant film for its time. We normally get a lot of these films sort of Hollywood, American, but this is a British film. It's brilliant. It captures this period so well. Now, it's written by Lee Vance, and it's directed by John Lamont, who, films that he's directed were The Shakedown, 1960, The Green Carnation, 1954, and Women Shall Weep, 1960, Conga, oh yes, 1961, he directed Conga. I think that's his most famous film. And he worked primarily in TV. That's it. He was very much a TV director. Now, the music is by Noir Paramore, and the song, The Frightened City, well, I say song, it's an instrumental, was a single by The Shadows. Yes, very recognisable Shadows, 1961 single. Brilliant instrumental. So, we've got in the cast Herbert Lom. Wow, he plays Waldo Zervikond. I can't do a very good Russian. But then we have Zervikond. Goff. You always have an off, don't we? Anyhow, what can I say? Herbert Lom. What an actor. He was in The Young Mr. Pitt, 1942. The Seventh Veil, 1945. Night and the City, 1950. The Net, 1953. The Lady Killers. Of course, he was in The Lady Killers, 1955. Brilliant film. He was in War and Peace, 1956. Hell Drivers, 1957. Now, remember this one with Stanley Baker. What a film that is, which I reviewed. Spartacus, 1960. Mysterious Island. Oh, yes, in Mysterious Island, 1961. And, of course, he was in Phantom of the Opera, 1962, the Hammer version. And he's brilliant in that one. And, of course, he was even in El Cid, 1961. And then, in many ways, he's so well known as Chief Inspector Dreyfus in the Pink Panther films. So he was in A Shot in the Dark, 1964. He was in The Return of the Pink Panther, 1975. He was in The Pink Panther Strikes Again, 1976. He was in Revenge of the Pink Panther, 1978. He was in Trail of the Pink Panther, 1982. There's loads of them, isn't there? Curse of the Pink Panther, 1985. And Son of the Pink Panther, 1993. Wow, all those Pink Panther films. Then he was in Count Dracula, 1970. Asylum, of course, yes. Oh, Asylum, 1970. It is a brilliant horror anthology, and he's in one of the stories. Oh, wow, I love Asylum. I've talked about it before. An Amicus film, brilliant horror. Anyhow, and to top it all, is in one of my all-time favourite films. Yes, of course, he's in The Dead Zone, 1983. Oh, The Dead Zone. What a film that is. And then he was in The Devil's Daughter, which is also known as The Sect, and I've got that film in my collection. Another great film. It's absolutely wonderful. That's from 1991, a horror slasher film. Then we've got another interesting actor, which is John Gregson, who plays Detective Inspector Sayers. Now, John Gregson's had a very interesting career. He was in Whiskey Galore, 1949. He was in The Lavender Hill Mob, 1951. He was in the Titfield Thunderbolt, which is again a very popular film. Genevieve, I suppose that's how he pronounced it, 1953. He was in Battle of the River Plate, 1956. He was in The Longest Day, 1962, which has such a massive cast of actors. Loads of people appeared in that. And of course, he was in Live Now, Pay Later. He was in The Night of the Generals. Oh, yeah, great film, 1967. And he was in Fright. Yes, I've reviewed Fright. Brilliant, 1971. Great film. Then we have got Sean Connery. Yeah, Sean Connery plays Paddy Damien. He was in, of course, 6 James Bond films. Dr. No, 1962, right through to Diamonds Are Forever, which was in 1971. He also did, of course, a sort of unofficial Bond film, which was Never Say Never Again, which was in 1983. Great James Bond. Always love him as James Bond. It's one of my favourites. He was in Hell Drivers, of course, 1957, Stanley Baker film. Brilliant in that one. He was in, I love this. This is a Disney film. He was in Darby O'Gill and the Little People, 1959. It's a lovely Disney film, that one. And he was in, of course, The Longest Day, 1962. Everybody's in The Longest Day, it seems. And, of course, he was in The Hill, which was a well-thought-of film, 1965. He was in The Anderson Tapes, 1971. And now, controversially, he was in The Offence, 1972, which is a very, very dark film. He's in that one. Controversial, definitely, particularly with its topic. He was in Zardoz, 1972, which is often laughed at as well. It's a sci-fi film, but I have to mention it. Because he was in Ransom, 1974, which I've reviewed. He was in The Wind and the Lion, 1975. He was in The Man Who Would Be King, 1975. He was in Robin and Marian. Oh, Robin and Marian. Great film. That's 1976. A Bridge Too Far, 1977. He was in The First Great Train Robbery, 1978. He was in Outland, of course. Outland, 1981. Brilliant sci-fi film. Absolutely love that film. He was in Highlander, of course. 1986, The Untouchables, 1987. He was in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1987. Wow. What some great films. And he was in, of course, The Hunt for Red October, 1990. And The Rock. Yes, The Rock is a great action film, 1996. Then we've got Alfred Marks, who plays Harry Fulcher. Now, he was really a comedian. That's how he's well known for. We've seen him on TV as well. But he was in a few films. He was in There Was a Crooked Man, 1960. And of course, he was in Scream and Scream Again, 1970. Valentino, 1977, and Fanny Hill, 1983. So those are the sort of male members of the cast. But then I've got 2 female actresses. We have got Yvonne Romain, who plays Anya Bogodin. She was in Circus of Horrors, 1960. She was in The Curse of the Werewolf, 1961. Hammer film. Brilliant Hammer film. She was in Captain Clegg, another Hammer film, 1962, of Peter Cushing. She was in Devil Doll, 1964. She was in Double Trouble, 1967. and she was in The Last of Sheila, 1973. Then we've got Olive McFarland, who plays Sadie. She was in Alive and Kicking, 1959. So Evil, So Young, 1961. And then she was in Naughty, yes, 1971. And then, of course, On the Game, 1974. Films that seem to go together in the titles. So that is the cast. I think one thing to point out is that this film, the London locations we see, it's just wonderful. Just looking at that, I always love these trips back in time. Absolutely fantastic. So, what is this film about? Well, we have Detective Sayers, who's played by John Gregson, and he's determined to smash these gangs and bring them to justice. Well, that's it. And he's very determined, he is. And these gangsters are really at each other. There's gang warfare going on in their extortion and protection rackets, which they do. We see them in operating, going into clubs and offices and shops and, just generally behaving like thugs and extorting money, protection racket scams. This film, I loved it. Because I think the story works well, and it's a good, again, just that moment in time in British cinema when we're seeing, which we hadn't seen before, and it was developing in that part of this movement of a more realistic look at cinema, and it wasn't Hollywood, which is great. And Hollywood had done this kind of sort of film noir ideas before, and now here we were in Britain doing it in our British film industry, and this is just wonderful stuff. I absolutely recommend this film. You can't argue with this cast, and what they do, they present a really good film that keeps you gripped, and the performances, the acting is just fantastic. I love this film. I think 33% shows how underrated it is, the critics, because now you look at this and think this for this period, and this moment in time in the 60s. This is the 60s is the great decade for the British film industry, the way it changes, and here we have just before that change, this is taking place. And wow, I absolutely think this is great. It's very entertaining, highly recommended. So before I go, I'll just show you my DVD copy. Here it is. Brilliant. Absolutely, look at that. Brilliant. There's the back. Sadly, there isn't any extras in this, which is a shame, but there we are. And then there's the disc, quite a plain sort of disc, but it's got a bit of illustration there on it. Yeah, that's it. Highly recommended. Hope you enjoyed it. So if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, and we'll let you know when I put out these videos. If you look in the playlist, you can see all the things that I do. I do a lot of movie reviews, film reviews, movies, whatever you want to call them. And I also do a bit of music as well. TV shows, look at that. Just all sorts. Hopefully you might enjoy something in there. And if you like this video, please give this video a like. If you give it a like, it gets it out onto YouTube, and hopefully other people might enjoy it. And if you have any comments, please put your comments down. I love to read your comments, and I'll always reply to them. And that's it. So all I've got to say is, I'll see thee again.